systems that work without you. Building, this is what business owners like. How can it work without me? I don't want to be part of it. How can it work without me? But I know that by now we've established a lot of background to let you know what your business growth phase is, so you can appreciate the point where you can hands off. So I'm in a different city. My mom is in a different city. She doesn't have to take care of me. I've attained some level of independence. She can check up on me. She can advise where necessary, but I'm independent. But many years ago, it was not this way. So at that point, she would even select the clothes I was going to wear, make sure that I wake up, maybe even bathe me and all that. So as growth happens, we can gradually start, shifting out some levels of involvement in our businesses. And what we're teaching today will apply to you even if you just have one person. Even if you're a solopreneur, where you just have one person on your team, what we are learning today absolutely applies to you as well. So if I was to put this in another way, is how can I replace myself in my business? There's a video series I did that I'll start sharing maybe from next week or so. It's a 7-day video series on how to replace yourself in your business, right? And one of the key concepts I taught in that video is training your clients to trust your team. Because sometimes as business owners, some of us are caught up in the thing of the client says, if it's not you, I will not allow your staff to do it. I want you. But the question is, how many places can I appear at the same time if everybody just wants me? How many places can I appear? So what I had to learn was, how do I train my clients to trust my team? By the time I go through this session today, I'm going to still highlight some points as it has to do with building a system that can work without. So today is day 4. We've done vision, we've done structure, we've done role clarity, and looking at systems, and then tomorrow is day 5. And we're going to talk about culture engineering strategies for starters. So let's just reflect on these few quotes. The first one says, organizations that depend solely on the skill and memories of the founders cannot scale. Organizations that depend solely on the skill and the memories of the founders cannot scale. If everything your business does depends on the skill that you have and what you have in your head, your memory, you can't scale it. What that means is that the lifetime of your business is also your lifetime, right? And sometimes the lifetime of your business will be shorter, because by the time age sets in, there are certain things you can no longer do. So it means that the business starts to go down and finally closes when you're not here. So that's something you should reflect, because it's important as a founder, as a builder, your goal should be to raise others who can do what you're doing, and even better than you're doing. The second quote here says, your business solution is designed to serve many generations after you are gone. Don't let it die in you and with you. Your business is multi-generational. It's not just for now. It's not just for family and friends. It is for generations after you. That is why I always love for you to see what you're building as a solution that should outlive you. There's this story I like to share to buttress this. I know I did that sometime. I shared a different version of that story sometime, I think maybe in a first class. And I like to say, imagine there is this old lady or a woman who understands how herbs work. Very good with herbs, can give you some mixtures that can even cure cancer. Cancer is not a big deal, just that sometimes, the solution is with somebody, any human problem, the solution is with somebody that has not discovered it or has not, packaged it in a way that people can access it. And this old woman can, make some mixtures, and then people just get healed. Maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, your body normalizes, you're good, and she's just doing it. And when she does it, you give her 100K, 50,000, 20,000, 5. She was just doing it as a hustle for survival, just so we can have something to eat. Now, if that woman with that wealth of knowledge in herbs should die tomorrow, we are not only going to be missing her presence on earth, we are going to be missing the solution she came on earth with. So I wouldn't want any of us to allow the solutions that we have to die in us or to die with us because we're not able to design systems that can outlive us. And this thing is simple. By the time we get in, find out that it's very simple. That when people are just saying structure, when you hear the word structure, it looks too big. That's why we always think that, or you hear systems, it looks too sophisticated. It looks like, hey, it's something that is too tough. And maybe when I grow, I will do it. Remember that we said you don't grow into structure. You don't grow into structure. You actually structure so that you can grow. It is structure that produces the growth, that prepares you for those expansion, those beautiful ideas that you have. And the truth about life is that nothing great is ever achieved by one person. There must always be a network of relationship, network of people that come together, bringing complementary skills, expertise, personalities to see that something truly thrives. And that is why recruitment, hiring, and all those processes that we go through is an important part of what we are building. It just came to my mind that I have not said anything about policy. I have not said anything about I've not really said so much about establishing policy in your business. But I think I'm going to bring that up tomorrow so that we can actually have organizations that have policies. I will bring that up in the place of culture, because policies guide how we relate with each other, how work is done, because you can't leave consequence to chance. Some of us do things by mood. When you do things according to your mood, it's not sustainable. You act anyhow. So the key objective of today's teaching is to replace yourself in your business through systems. Replacing yourself. You don't just replace yourself and say, I want to replace myself and hire people. The way to replace yourself is to create a system for the things that you do so that you can pass it on, right? We're going to learn how to optimize structure through system. If you go ahead and design an organogram, have a vision, and you don't systematize your operations, the frustration will still be there. So you're going to learn how to optimize your structure through systems, because if you have an organogram, you have vision and all that, and you're not able to have practical ways that things happen, because system is like the oil that oils all the structure you have established, and then it ensures that there is uniformity in the system, right? So what is a system? A system is a set of connected processes, tools, and people working together to achieve a specific goal. In this case, that goal is the corporate vision, the purpose, or the periodic objectives that come up in the course of doing business. And your business is a system. Everything is working together. The people are working, the tools, the resources, everything it ought to work together to bet the goal or the vision of the company. So your business is a system, and for it to run predictably, efficiently, and at scale, you need SOPs. That's the word people are scared of, SOPs. SOPs look like it's a big word. You need SOPs. So I want to share this story. My husband loves shawarma, or he used to love shawarma, because I don't know why he stopped talking about shawarma fave. Maybe it's even this experience that made him not to stop talking about shawarma. He used to love shawarma, and when he comes, sometimes he tells, if I'm going to be good, I just want to eat my shawarma. And on this particular day, he went to buy shawarma somewhere. He bought the shawarma. I wasn't around. I think he bought it and went somewhere. By the time he ate it, he came back and was like, I found the best place for shawarma in this world. I said, tell me something. He said, if you see the shawarma, if you see the chicken they put inside, he was talking. He said, tomorrow we're going to buy. And my husband is a very excited person that when something is good, he doesn't just tell people about it, he used to promise to buy for them. You'll be wondering, it's not our family money wants to buy this thing for these people. He will just say, have you eaten shawarma? I'll buy for you. He went to church that day promising people, I'll buy for you. He was promising shawarma up and down the place. So we went to, and I said, let's go and get the shawarma. We went to go and get the shawarma. They said they didn't have, like, how many days they kept on saying that it was not available. And then one day we were lucky enough, we went there and then they had shawarma. And then we now said, my husband, out of joy, he just said, I don't know how many he told them to pack. I said, just pack shawarma. They put the shawarma, we went home and we started eating it. When we started eating it, because there's a way they used to treat them that they like, that the person that is there now is not treating them that way. No, results must be systematic and not personal. If I call MTN, anybody who picks, whether it's Salima or Fatima or anybody who picks my call in MTN, takes me through exactly the same process. The same questions Fatima will ask is the same question that Salima will ask. The same questions, the same process you're taking through. Why? They have created a system out of that in a way that they do not leave it to the discretion of people. You know, we said the last time that discretion is an enemy of standards. Discretion is an enemy of standards. So SOPs are the building blocks that make a system repeatable and reliable. And I'm going to show us how to decide which task should have SOP. Should every single task in an organization or responsibility have SOPs? It's two-sided. There's a yes and then there's a no. But you're going to learn which tasks should have SOPs, which one should have broad guidelines, and which one don't need SOPs. So without SOPs, a system cannot work effectively. It may have activities, but it won't produce the desired outcome, right? So what is an SOP? An SOP, which is a standard operating procedure, is a documented set of instructions that explains how to perform a task or a process consistently. Please note the words. A documented set of instructions that explains how to perform a task or a process consistently. So now here's the difference between a job description and an SOP. While a job description tells an employee what to do, it tells an employee what to do. So it tells that this role, you do this, you design this, you carry out this activity, you're doing. So it tells them what to do, but an SOP tells them how to do it. Because if you give them a what without a how, discretion comes in and standards are lost. So if you tell a front desk officer, receive guests that come to the office, the question is, how should they receive the guests? Because if you don't say how, they will just tell the person, come, sit down there, sit down there. And you're wondering, is that how to talk to people? You don't assume everybody knows how to talk to people. I even tell people, when you have cleaners and you tell them it's your work to wash, set the washroom in order, put the washroom together, the toilet, the restroom, the this, you must tell them, you must give a checklist. You can't assume they know how to wash toilet very well, because you have not even seen the one in their houses. Because by the time they bring how they wash the one in their house to your office, you'll be disappointed. So you must tell them, check this place. You must make sure that the lintels are cleaned. This place is scrubbed. Because if you leave it to chance, you'll be amazed at what will happen. I went to a hotel once. It was late, so I had to rush in to lodge there. So I saw that the top of the wardrobe was so dusty. And I called the supervisor. And I asked him, why is this place not properly cleaned? He said, no, it's clean. I said, look at dust on the wardrobe. He said, okay, that's time. We know they clean them. Why? He said, you don't clean on top wardrobe. Why? It's not part of the room. Dust is there. You tell them that you don't follow. So because you have not put a checklist, they focus on what is seen and leave the other parts that also affect the customer experience. Right? So you have to be clear. When people are clear, you can demand accountability to results. You can tell them, why wasn't this done? Because it was stated in the checklist that these are the different places that must be cleaned. Or let's say it's a hotel and there's a room. How do we clean our room? The first thing is I want to make the bed, then we do this. If not, they're going to finish mopping and then come and start making the bed. And you're wondering why the room is still not clean or dusty. I said, but did you mop? Yes. Did you do this? Yes. Why? There was no set of processes to follow in accomplishing that task. So points to note, SOPs reduce errors and dependence on memory. It is important that as a founder, as a business owner, that thing you know how to do, document it, bring it out. Don't just leave it in your memory. you must document it, because if you leave it in your memory, it will always remain dependent on you. SOPs allow anyone on the team to perform a task correctly, even if they have never done it before. So this is a benchmark we use. If I give you an SOP and on day one you cannot understand it enough to implement it, something is wrong with it. The SOPs must be very easy to understand and implement. It may require you sometimes doing a video of that particular process. SOPs are not always written text. There are some processes that can be recorded. We have some video SOPs where someone can watch the process a thing happens, right? Even in some text SOPs, it is important that certain times you insert images when necessary. So you want to tell me how to navigate a site, you can actually say click the button on the right and you attach a screenshot or you snap that part of it and put there, so that when I go on that site, I look at the SOP, I can quickly tell what exactly it is you want me to do. So SOPs must be simple. The goal is not sophistication, the goal is simplicity and clarity. Not sophistication, not big words. Because SOPs can equip an amateur to have the result of a professional. Like I used the example a few days ago, that even if I'm not a very good chef, and then you give me a recipe, a well detailed out recipe that captures the temperature, the ingredient, the measurements and everything, and I follow that exact same process, chances are high that I'm going to have the result of a professional chef, even though it's my first time of cooking. Right? So SOPs are the recipes for your system to produce predictable outcomes. You may be in an industry where you're not the sole, you're not the manufacturer of what you sell, but you can have a system that you go about it that makes it that this is our own way of doing this particular thing. This is, let's say you're into you're a real estate person, and then you have your process, how you go for inspections, you have a process. Even, you know, your SOP can include, I remember one time I was talking with one of our real estate clients, and he says they take people to site one after the other. They don't go as a group. I was shocked. I said, this is going to cost more money. Why do you take people one by one? He said, you can carry a group now. One person's conversation inside a group will start to discourage others. Maybe one person will say, this place is very foul, inside bush like this. Another person will say, right, it's really inside bush. Before you know, one person will now use their conversation and spoil the entire process. So they said, no, we won't go as a group, we'll go one by one. I said, the reason is that you have not thought about a way of guided, as in making your inspection a guided discovery. That while they're in the car, maybe you have other small screen that begins to tell them the beauties of that place. While they're on that journey, you're engaging their mind in what you want them to think about as they navigate that path. It's when you leave the conversation scanty that thoughts of negativity and, hey, look, I'm not sure I can buy this thing. No, this place look like they're kidnappers. So, hey, this one and then. I said, you have to guide that conversation. So how about being on that ride and there are educative videos on land banking, there are discovery videos on that site, you're revealing the treasures in that location, sharing possibilities. While they are there, the chances are that they will start thinking about how to acquire more plots and not how not to buy. Why? Intentionality in setting up a process. Because if you're not careful, the person who is driving them there may even not like that site and start discouraging them. So what do? We don't leave it to chance. Let's guide the process. I've been to a medical facility. While you're in the waiting room, you start seeing a lot of medicals. While you're there, even if you came to carry out one test, you start to think about, it's like, I need this one. It's like, why? They have guided your thoughts. I will be thinking it's my thoughts to do those tests, but they have guided my thoughts to think about doing those tests. Because marketing is about you selling a suggestion and allowing the person's mind make a decision about it. When they are thinking they're the ones who are deciding, meanwhile, you're the one that have helped them to make that decision. But you're not manipulating them or pushing them to that point of decision. So thinking about every aspect of your business and saying, rather than saying, hey, it will not work, this SOP will not work, we cannot do SOP. How about thinking, how can we standardize it? Any task that must be done repeatedly, deserves an SOP. Any task that requires consistent outcome requires an SOP. We're going to look at that. So SOP is like your recipe. It's like what makes you. That is why you can't copy SOP from anywhere. You must think and say, what do I want to build? What is our effect in the marketplace? How do we want to be perceived? How about you running a medical facility, and when people are waiting, you have your customer maybe fulfillment officer or customer executive go and tell them, you see doctor in 15 minutes time. People don't want to be kept as though they are waiting eternally, but that someone is there updating them. What does it make me feel like? I feel like I'm special enough and I know what to expect in your system, rather than say, can't you see queue, madam, you came late, so just better calm down there. Because if you're not careful, rather than give hope to your customers will be collecting boss from your people because whatever the because is. So it's very important that you design the system that gives your business a unique touch. I'll tell you a simple way you're going to do it. Let me write it down so I remember. Simple way to do SOP. So that you don't think that you have to now start writing, and then before you know, you say you're not doing it again. I'll show you a simple way. So systems have processes, people, and tools, and then you have the SOP that says how and who, and the goal is that there is consistent outcome. If we have some responsibilities, we need to standardize them, and by giving step-by-step processes that make it easy to implement and gives us the expected output. One way to win customer loyalty is by being predictable and consistent. If I can trust the outcome I will have from you, there are chances that I'm going to repeat patronage. I will come back because I can trust what I'm going to get. I will not be met with surprises. Right? Okay. So how do I create SOP? The SOP creation framework. How do I design an SOP? What should I do? It's looking technical. At the end, I'm going to tell you a very simple way. Thank God that we have tools like AI that we can maximize so that you don't sit down and then become an author of an SOP. You can actually create these things in a very simplified way. Okay, so what is the step one? Step one is that you have to identify repeatable tasks. What should be systematized? Like I said, if a thing keeps repeating, there should be a system around it. What is our system for requisition in the office? What is the system for disbursement of fund? What is our system for recording our finances? What is our system, for even down to servicing our maybe generators and all of that? If we use it every 3 weeks, we service it. Or if you hit certain hours, if this thing hits 200 hours, we need to change oil. Do you know? In a company I work, I think we've even started implementing it, where there's a generator log. When we turn it on, when we turn it off. So that you can track usage and know where there are faults, where certain maintenance are required, because there are high demand period where a gen can run, and this is the work of a logistics person. But if you're the only one in your business, please don't add that tax to yourself. It's just But if you have a logistics person or someone who handles that part, a core admin staff, they can actually have a gen log where we can track our gen usage and even know why we are consuming as much fuel. So if we are buying fuel of 50,000 naira every week, we can actually say 50,000 naira fuel can actually last us for a week because we run the gen for 30 hours. Leaders make decisions based on data. Great decisions are data-driven decisions. You use data to know what to do. You don't just guess. How much you spend on power every month? Is like sometimes it's 500,000, another time it's 100,000. What are the metrics that cause you to spend? I don't even know. So how do you budget and how do you plan for the future when data is not available to you? So if my team members tell me, oh, we've run out of data in the office, and I'm wondering, when did we get this data? So how long have we used it? I need data to decide and say, no, this is a more economic decision. Some of us don't know that maybe solar may be economical for us because we don't even have data on what we spend on fuel in a year. So we just think that because you're spending it small is better, not knowing that in a year what you're spending is actually okay for you to even have a solar system. But because there's no data, we are guessing our way. We are planning without, we're just, making spontaneous decisions, and it's not going to serve what you're building. So ask yourself, in every role that people occupy, or even what you do as a CEO, what do you do often? What are those things that you do often, repeatedly, in every role? So it's not just for you, because you're creating SOPs across systems. What do you do repeatedly? And then the second one is, what causes confusion when it's done differently? That once we just change how we are doing it, there's confusion. Is there any process that if the process changes, it causes confusion in our system? What breaks when a specific person is absent? That's another thing. That once one person is not there, you have to, why this is important, whether you like it or yes. Somebody will marry. I used to have this staff that worked so closely with me, and when she married, she had to move to the north. Now she's still working with us, but on remote basis. If somebody will marry, and in a few weeks she's going to be going on maternity leave, what happens when she goes on maternity leave? I have this business owner that always say, that comes to us to help him hire, and he doesn't like to hire married people. He's afraid that if you might hire people, I say, but the singles will marry now, or is it when they enter our business they take a covenant of singlehood that we'll never marry because we are working here? Why not build your business to make provisions for the transitions? When we started building our company, as at the time we started, it was just myself and my husband that were married. We had a bunch of single Pringles. Everybody was single Pringle. We can walk. Nobody's talking about husband say, wife said. Nobody was saying anything. We're just the only people who were married. But as it stands now, we have more married people on our team. 2 of them are expecting babies, right? One of them had a baby that had to make us open an office crèche. Because you don't want to put your staff in a position where they have to choose between work or family. Because they will choose their family. So we had to hire a corporate caregiver, because when she resumed, she's, you know what it means, a new mom, first time mom for that matter, not even someone that maybe understands the rope. First time mom, and she's working and baby is crying. We had to quickly hire a a corporate caregiver. We had to see how we put the name. We didn't say office nanny or our office assistant. We call it corporate caregiver. So when you ask person, where are you working? I work in charge as a corporate caregiver. It will look like, it won't look like a domestic assistant. It will look like a high profile, right? And we had to hire that person so that when she's working, the person tends to the baby. We had to also structure that department to have learning times for the baby. And even part of the accountability that happens, that corporate caregiver also gives accounts in the WhatsApp group that we have, where the person, because in our company we have a strong accountability. Every 30 minutes the accountabilities are dropping. This person is working on this, that one is working on this, so that wherever I am, I have an idea what's happening. The person says, feeding baby right now, baby is sleeping. Once the baby is sleeping, we don't allow her to now go and sleep beside the baby as a co-baby. No. We are also training her in administrative skills. So once the baby starts to sleep, she gets into the office and start learning administrative tasks. Because that baby will not be a baby forever. Right? That baby will not be a baby. When the baby clocks 2 years, that baby should go to school. So what happens to this staff? Do you not lay this staff off because a baby has grown? Rather, we transition you from being a corporate caregiver fully into an administrative role. You get that, right? But even in that company, you say it's not just to carry baby. It's not just to carry baby. No, it's not just to carry baby, because that baby has to be learning while they're in the office. So we have to put up a schedule that baby is learning while the mother is focused on work. So you have to start learning how to allow your business grow with the changing phases of business. Business is a lot, too. And when there's a way you're going to start running your business, you make the profitability of the business the burden of your team. So it is wrong to run a business where only the founder bears the burden of profitability. Your team should share that burden of profitability. One of the things I've also done is to infuse marketing in every role. Let me make a shift now. Let me say this. We had to convert every department in our company into a profit center. If I say this, it's going to take me way off, but let me just give a little detail around it. We offer different services. Tribe Leadership Consult is focused on leaders, but we have another company called InCharge Solutions Limited. There we do business strategy planning, business incorporation with CAC, everything CAC, everything legalization, recruitment, staff training, and all that happens in Tribe, in Charge, while Tribe is focused on corporate leaders. Now, because that business has different departments, there's the corporate service department, the human resource department, business strategy development department, we had to now make, in fact, what we are doing this year is transitioning those departments into subsidiaries and making InCharge a holding company. And how we started rehearsing for that process was that we started to put in managers for the different departments and training them to think like executive directors. So every department, so the way I'm thinking about business is how my ED is thinking about the HR. The HR department currently has they have a revenue target. So they are thinking how to hit their revenue. So now that we are growing, we didn't start out at this level. So we started out through departments. But currently, all of those different departments now have their social media handles and are selling independently. And then before the year ends, we formalize that process by converting them into subsidiaries and then become a holding company. So you have to train your team members to think in terms of numbers. One of the trainings we always give to employees, I have a training I call how to think, what's that other training? Thinking, developing an entrepreneurial mindset as an employee. Maybe if I enter your city, if God touches me, I'll come and teach your staff. Developing entrepreneurial mindsets for your team, where they start thinking like business owners and not just like employees waiting for salary. As the year is ending, the mood of an employer and the mood of an employee are totally different things. The employee is happy. The employee is happy that the month is ending so that they can come and take salary. The employer is not so happy because they have not hit the target and he still has to pay salary, right? But of course, we're going to be fine. So I said here, if it happens more than once, it deserves an SOP. If something happens more than once, it keeps happening repeatedly, it deserves an SOP. So there are 3 types of tax. I had to categorize tax so that you know the kind of tax that require SOPs and those that may not require SOPs. So for number 1, I said is repeatable tax. Repeatable tax. These are the tax that happen frequently and must be done consistently. For example, for an admin officer, receiving and registering incoming correspondence, processing staff leave requests, preparing daily office opening and closing checklists, scheduling meetings, managing office supplies. These things happen every other time. And if it happens every time, there has to be a process to it to avoid confusion in your system. So if the tax must look the same every time for the business to function well, it needs an SOP. Repeatable tax. So ask yourself, what are the things I do consistently or that in different job roles they do repeatedly? We need to standardize it so that we can function effectively. Number 2 is judgment-based tax. This tax requires discretion, context, and human judgment. So example for an admin is handling an angry working customer. You can't tell them, if the customer comes in, just tell the customer, I'm sorry, don't do it. And then the customer is shouting and then you don't use a script to manage an angry customer. But what you need is for this kind, SOPs are more of principles and escalation rules. If it gets to this extent, hand over to this person. So you're not telling them, tell the angry customer, hello ma, we are sorry that we did this, and the person is blazing hot. By the time the staff will say, hello ma, we are sorry, they would have given his staff a slap because the person may be frustrated that your answer is not tallying with what he's saying. And you're trying to follow a script that does not match the current situation. So in such judgment-based tasks, what you do, SOPs are principles. If an angry customer comes in and is this thing, we can escalate it and hand over to the operations manager. Let the operations manager handle it. If it's beyond here, so you're giving a context, right? You're giving a context or principles that allow the process to go on, rather than a script they are forced to follow, even when it doesn't fit it. So when judgment is required, SOP should guide thinking and not dictate the rules. Is that clear? It guides thinking. So if something should escalate, there has to be an escalation process or an escalation path, so that something does not go from the admin officer to the CEO when there's an operations manager that should have stepped in to calm it at that point. If you don't provide this, every single problem will be brought to your desk. Every single challenge will be brought to your desk. And the time you ought to invest in building your team, in doing some strategic functions, you're going to then use that time and start settling office quarrel. Some of our offices have become a drama zone. Drama. It's like movies happening. They did not say, they now say, they do not now say. Every time you're settling quarrel, you're settling issues and all of that. That's not it. An employer that he's a Nigerian that doesn't stay in Nigeria, but he has a business operating here. He told me something. He said, in fact, he came to a point where he was at the verge of shutting down his business. So I asked him what happened. And he said, Joyce, when I was starting this business, I made it clear that I was not going to hire anybody from my family or from my village to avoid village people, in your business or relationship and sentiment. He said, I will not hire any of such person. But I said, Joyce, as it stands now in my business, it looks like I work with my village people, even though they're not from my village. It looks like us there's drama. They did not, he now said, and I said, when you don't have policies and systems, you will turn into an actor, because you have to join in the play. You will have to act. Either you're acting as a judge or a lawyer in the play. Then you keep settling issues. So these are judgment-based tasks. Judgment-based tasks, right? And then we have the third one, which is creative or strategic tasks. These involve innovation, design, or problem solving. They do not require SOP. So, for example, an admin officer has to design a better filing system or improve office workflow or propose new admin tools. These are more like problem solving, or you want them to think. So you don't systematize creativity. What you create system for is consistency, not creativity. I can't tell you now, if you want to do strategic thinking, you now turn your head to the left, you stretch to the back, and all of those things. Or if you want to help us bring idea for the office, you turn right, you turn left. You don't kill creativity through systems. What you systematize or systemize is consistency, the things that happen repeatedly that affect the outcomes that we have. So do we understand these three types of tasks? So let me just go through the three types of tasks again. Remember that we have said that the first step is to identify repeatable tasks. If a thing happens more than once, it deserves an SOP. Whatever that's required that is repeated should be systemized. And we said that there are three types of tasks. We have repeatable tasks, we have judgment-based tasks, and we have strategic or creative tasks. Under repeatable tasks, we say, for example, receiving and registering incoming correspondence, processing staff leave requests, preparing daily office, those things that happen every time, that if it changes, it can affect our business effectiveness. We need to create a system around it. And we say if the task must look the same every time for the business to function well, it needs an SOP. Judgment-based tasks. These tasks require discretion, context, or human judgment, right? In these ones, people don't need a script to follow. What they need are principles to guide their thinking. So, for example, handling an angry working customer. You can't tell a person to be saying a script when the client's reaction It's different. It can even provoke the client to an extent that they can even act in a way that may not be good, right? So you don't have you cannot say, give a script. If somebody comes in now and is angry and is shouting, you tell the person, calm down first. Because, for example, you see an angry customer, and the person is shouting, and then you see someone saying, calm down, calm down. It's not that deep. How do you want the customer to react? You're telling me it's not that deep. Something is paining me. You say it's not that deep. Let the Gen Z not be the Gen Z not handle an angry customer. Say it's not that deep. Why are you ranting? So we said for this kind of tax, he said SOP becomes principles or escalation rules, not a script to follow. What that means that an angry customer comes in, and if you know that it's beyond what you can handle and we need to escalate it, the next person we should hand that person over to, maybe it's the operations manager, the business manager, or somebody else. And if it's beyond there, this is how we escalate it until maybe it gets to the CEO or whoever that can handle that customer. But we don't give scripts. So I said here that when judgment is required, SOP should guide thinking and not dictate rules. SOP should guide thinking and not dictate the rules. And the third one is the creative or strategic tax. And any tax that involves innovation, design, or problem solving, they don't require SOP. Because you cannot create systems around creativity. What you can create system around is consistency. So you tell a staff to design a better filing system or improve office workflow. You want them to think of something that can help us improve. You can't give them an SOP on how to think. So you can't give an SOP for something that requires creativity. Rather, you can give an SOP for what is repeatable or a guide of action for what is judgment-based. So is that clear? So I said here what to always remember. If the tax must be done the same way every time for quality to be maintained, it needs an SOP. So the step 2, now that we know the kind of tax that we need, that the type of tax that we need to create a system around, the next thing is that we need to define the purpose of the SOP. Each of these slides have an example so that you can understand what I'm trying to say. So you define the purpose of the SOP. Why does this process exist? Because people need a why to guide their thinking so that they know the reason why we have to go through this process is because we need to maintain the integrity of our services. So an SOP must give a why, a context, the reason why this thing must be followed. If an SOP does not capture the reason it must be followed, either what we are trying to prevent or what this outcome must guarantee, chances are that people may not respect it because they don't know why they should respect those systems. So every SOP must answer 2 questions. What problem does this prevent? What outcome must it guarantee? You're going to see an example in the next slide. So this step will prevent you from writing useless SOPs. SOPs that we don't know what is going to prevent. We don't know what is at stake if we don't follow it. So it must state the purpose. So purpose gives the SOP meaning, right? So let me give you an example using the next slide, and then I come back to this slide to explain more. So for example, for an admin officer, the SOP name is Incoming Correspondence Handling SOP. That's our procedures for handling correspondence. The purpose of this SOP, to ensure that all incoming documents, emails, and packages are received, recorded, routed, and stored accurately, preventing loss, delay, or miscommunication. So someone knows that the reason why I need to follow these processes that will be outlined in this SOP is because if we don't document properly, if we don't stop properly, this can lead to issues. Either we lose those documents or we have delay in meeting our client demands, or it causes miscommunication between us and the customer. Now, for example, I've worked in a US tax preparation company before, where every single information is important. So while we worked there, clients are sending in emails, sending in through our secure file portal, sending in data for even WhatsApp, they're working with documents and all that. We had to create a filing system that ensures that no document is lost. So one of the tasks that the admin carried out in that our company was document processing. How we receive documents in different places to check every morning if documents came in. When you confirm from there, how to process the documents, where to save the documents, how to label the documents, just so that we are sure. Because if you miss any of those tax required documents in preparing taxes, even you will definitely get it wrong, because one number out of their tax computation affects even what they're supposed to pay as taxes. So we had to ensure that we had a tight filing system to ensure that, because when a client now tells you, no, this cannot be my tax, but I told you I paid for this. We didn't see the document. Where did you send it? How did you send it? We start, and then before you know, the customer is pissed that we are careless. So that SOP purpose must help them understand what problem does this SOP prevent and what outcome does it guarantee, so that we don't just end up writing useless SOPs. So this whole process, so this is an example. After the SOP name or title, you have the purpose, and then we go to the third step to know what is there. Step 3 says map the process. Map the process. You have to specify the step-by-step on how a tax happened. So the goal is not to write how you wish the process works or copying what other people do. You need to write how it actually works, right? So what you must write what really happens in simple steps from start to finish with no assumptions. That is why when you get into this process to implement in your team, you have to teach your team members how to write an SOP so that they can now start implementing in their department, and what you do is to review. You have to teach them this process. You can't say, oh, there must be SOP, or your team, go and do SOP. Meanwhile, you are going through a training that told you how to do it, but they don't know how to do it. Before you now start seeing strange SOPs. So it's good that you take them through this process on how to create an SOP, so that they are empowered to go ahead and create for their department, while what you can do in your position is to vet those SOPs, make corrections, standardize them, and then they are now implementable. So even in our company, when a person joins us and then there are certain tasks they must do, usually I tell them, give that person the SOP to try those tasks without guidance. Let's test if this thing works. Because if we give them the SOP and they are still confused, it's not simple enough to be understood. Like I always say, SOPs or systems make amateurs look like professionals. So it has to be very simple. So you must write what really happens in that task in very simple steps from start to finish with no assumptions. If a new hire, here is the benchmark, if a new hire cannot follow it on day one, it's not clear enough. If a new hire goes through the SOP and they can't follow it, it's hard, it's not clear. So go back and make it simple and easy to implement. So for example, using the same SOP we have been working with. So we have the SOP name, the purpose, and now the process. We say receive documents. The sources of documents can be email, can be courier, can be walk-in clients. Stamp dates and time received. Enter details in correspondence log. Identify intended department or officer. Forward within 2 hours. File a copy. Now this is not even that detailed, because it should tell you where to file a copy. If there's a file path, you should put a file path there. File a copy using this file path. So and so it takes them through the file path, how they're able to file the copy, right? So it has to just take them in a process of doing, in a way that each time they are confused, they don't have to call you. They go to the SOP to get guidance on what to do. Remember I said that SOPs are not always just text. You can have video SOPs. You can have text plus images. As long as it makes it simple. If you work with multiple equipment, you can actually snap an equipment and just infuse it in the SOP, because this process, SOP education, is part of the onboarding process a new hire goes through, so that they have clarity enough to start moving from day one. So step 4, assign responsibilities. Who owns what? Every standard operating procedure must clearly state who initiates this task, who executes it, who approves or reviews it. When everyone is involved, no one is responsible. So we need to know, is this SOP, who initiates or executes it? Is it the admin officer? If there's need for a review and approval, who is the one that does it? So an example of that, you can see that maybe in an admin officer, who initiates it is the admin officer, who executes it, the admin, who approves or oversees that part is the operations manager, and if anything goes wrong and there's need for escalation, is the head of operations that should handle it if it's unresolved after 24 hours. So there's a clear escalation part, because if you don't create an escalation part, when things go out of hand, people may not report things, and you find out that things get, maybe it's at the point is now so bad that you now start getting in, and it can lead to losses for the company. So this is just to tell you there has to be someone responsible for that task. So step 5, define standards and tools. How well and with what? So SOP should answer, how fast should this thing happen? Is there a timing to it? How accurate? Using what tools? In what format? So you're going to see an example that simplifies this. So we said quality is designed, not hoped for. You don't hope for excellence. You don't hope for quality. You design quality. And that's why systems are important. You design it. You design excellence. You forge excellence. You don't just hope and say, I just trust that it will be good. No, it has to go through processes, right? And you see, some of the things that systems are not so important. Think about if a maintenance officer, an aircraft maintenance officer, does not carry out his maintenance work to the letter using a checklist, and he forgot to tighten a bolt because there's no checklist. You're trusting his discretion. Common sense should tell him that bolts should be tightened, and there's an oversight, because oversight happens. There's an oversight where he doesn't tighten a particular bolt, and then we are flying with a knot not tied. What happens? Lives are at stake. A company is at the risk of being shut down, getting liabilities from the dangers and all of that. Why? It was not because the pilots did one big thing, but a maintenance officer decided not to tighten his knot because he had no checklist or SOPs to guide him in carrying out that activity, right? So example for an admin officer, we can say log entries must be completed within 15 minutes of receipt. The reason is, if you don't give a time frame for that task, there's this law that is called Parkinson law. Parkinson law says that work would always increase to fill the time allotted to it. You get that? A task that you can do in 15 minutes can take you 2 days. Work will always expand to fill the time allocated to it. Even when something should take a smaller time, it will take so much time because we did not allocate time. So it's not just enough to log entries, but when should we log it? 15 minutes after you receive it, please log it in. If not, a person can say, is it not logged? I will log it in after 1 month. As long as we will log it in, last, we go there all right. And you're wondering, why didn't you log it in? But the SOP did not give them a guide on the standard that says it must be done within 15 minutes of receipt. Use the official correspondence register. So they don't go and write it in a jotter, right? It must be done in the official correspondence register. Digital files must follow this naming convention. How do we name files? Because if you don't name files properly, you spend time. I've worked in a government establishment. When I did my NYSC, I served in Kaduna, and that's Kaduna in Nigeria, and I worked in the NAFDAC office as an admin officer. Do you know? Oh my God. You see, inefficiency is bad. It's very bad. Do you know that somebody will come to NAFDAC office then, in the morning, and will spend the whole day looking for the person's file? And for you to find the person's file, we have this very big logbook. I will now be searching for the person's name in over 2,000 numbers. So much that so the way you're going to search, by the time you reach number 200, you have forgotten the name that even brought you. You'll be asking yourself, what am I even looking for? What am I looking for here? What even brought me to this book? So you have to now write the names of files. You will now search. After you finish searching in the file to find the number, right? Say the mistake of, you find the number of that person's file. That's not where the work has ended. You now see the heap of files. You now start searching heap of files, turning upside down to look for a single file. If before you finish the process, work may have, remember that the person come back tomorrow, I've not found your file. Inefficiency. So when I came into that system, I had to develop a filing system for them on my laptop, and then went ahead to organize the file according to numbers, so that when somebody comes, and then I labeled every cabinet there, that when somebody comes, you check your system is file 2125, and then you go to the cabinet, you find where 2125 falls under, and then before you know, we started finding files in 5 minutes. But what created that simplicity is systems. I went to the hospital one day, and that's how they kept me looking for my file. I'd finished seeing the doctor before they found my file. Because they have to be searching. How much do you want to search? Right? So digital files must follow the naming convention. Emails must use approved templates. Emails must use approved templates. You have to fabricate excellence. You have to forge excellence for you to experience excellence. And how we do it is through standards. Step 6 says, test and improve. Does this work in real life? So after writing this SOP, run it for a week. Right? Run it for a week. Observe if there are confusions. Ask the question, where do people resist or struggle in implementing it? And then you can adjust language or steps, because you must test it and improve where necessary. The goal is effectiveness. It has to be effective. It has to produce the desired result. So it must be tested. So we test it so that we can improve it. Right? So SOPs should serve the people. SOP should serve the people. So after you have tested it, it's working, you've improved it, the next thing is to document it and store it. Where does this SOP live? So you can have a folder for SOPs and have subfolders with different departments and their SOPs properly labeled. Because it's one thing to have SOPs, it's another thing to be looking for SOP every time. Where we now spend our productive time at work searching for SOP. We are searching for SOP, but there's SOP, but we don't know where the SOP is. An SOP you cannot find. If it's not accessible, it does not exist. So every SOP must have a centralized version, which is our official version. You don't want us to have 10 staff, and these 10 people are using 10 versions of SOP to do work. There must be a centralized version that we know that there's one official version of this SOP. So don't have many. And if you're going to improve an SOP and update it, it must be recorded there that this SOP was, updated on so and so date. It must be signed, and it must not become the standing one. So you don't have 5 different SOPs for one task And people are asking which one is the standard, right? Because if we're all implementing different SOPs, we're going to be confused. Every SOP must be accessible. It must be accessible. It must be easy to find and use. What we do in our company, we use a shared drive. It is important that it's in a shared drive, so that anywhere anybody who say, oh, it's in a manager's system, it's in this person's system, there has to be a central point for us to access the SOPs. So it must be easy to find and use. And the third point says control. It must be controlled. Changes should be tracked and managed. So you can say we have a standard where we review SOPs every quarter, right? We must track it and manage it. That once we replace an SOP, we'll phase out the old one, we update them. So every SOP, something you see on the title page, you will see reviewed also and so dates, so that people know that this is the latest edition of the SOP. Because SOPs must be reviewed. There will always be better ways of doing certain tasks. So you must consistently improve the SOP. But if you don't track and manage it properly, what that can lead to is that you're going to have too many SOPs that we can't track. So I said here, if it's not written, it doesn't exist. If it's not accessible, it won't be used. Okay, so these are the 7 steps. Slide 1, identify repeatable tasks. Identify repeatable tasks. And we talked about the different kinds of tasks. Slide 2, define the purpose of the SOP. You must give relevance to that SOP by stating why it exists, what problem it prevents, and what outcome it must guarantee. And like I said, this step will prevent you from writing useless SOPs. Yes, there's such a thing as useless SOPs. Step 3 is map the process. So where you have to write the step-by-step, where we said you must write what really happens in very simple steps from start to finish with no assumptions. If a new hire cannot follow it on day 1, it is not clear enough. And there is an example here to guide. Step 4 says assign responsibility. You must indicate who initiates, who executes, who approves or reviews that task. So we gave an example here. An admin officer can initiate, can execute, and must be approved or overseen by an operations manager. And if there's an escalation, the head of operations can do that if it goes beyond 24 hours. That's an example. Step 5 says define standards and tools. You must write how fast should this thing be done, how accurate, what tools are being used, and in what format it happens. And we gave a guide here, because it's important that you know that excellence is designed, quality is designed. It is not assumed, it is not hoped for, right? And step 6 says test and improve. This document that we have, let's test it and let's improve upon it. And if it works, then the next thing is document it and store. And we say you must document it in a central location, it must be accessible, and it must be controlled, which is changes are tracked and managed and reviewed quarterly. So let me tell you an easy way to put together your SOP without going to ChatGPT to just quickly say, give me SOP for admin. Because that's what people do. Give me SOP for this. Give me SOP for that. Rather than do that, I do a lot of voicing, right? I understand the process in my head, and I need to churn this document out in the next 5 minutes. So I record to whatever AI platform I'm using the exact steps and processes it goes through, what to do, where to source for this. And after I go through that process and I give it the format of the SOP I want, what it goes ahead to do is to organize that information in an easy to implement format. So who must develop SOPs? Now, SOPs can be developed if it's a founder-led business. That's where maybe it's just you and 1 or 2 people and all of that. Usually, by accurate standards, before somebody comes into a job, there should be a standard. They don't come in to figure out standard with you. Do you get that? Normally, accurate standard, if I'm bringing you in, there should be certain standards that have been established so that from day one, you can know what to do, how to do it, even while I work with you to improve the processes. But in a case where we have hired and we don't even have SOPs, like I know some of us don't have SOPs here, and we're not asking, who will not do this work? I hope it's not mean that we add this work to my current work as CEO. So here's what you can do. If you have a HR person that understands HR work, not people that got into HR by circumstance. You say, there's no HR here. Can you help us and do HR? Since no, I'm talking about people who know HR work, not circumstantial HR managers. If you have a circumstantial HR person, the person needs training. Because HR work is technical. There are a lot of technicalities to fulfilling a human resource function. So if you have a HR person, the person can guide the rest of the team on how to write it. If you don't have a HR person, you have to stand in there and guide the rest of the team. So you people have been in this job for the past 3 months. I'm going to take you through the process of writing an SOP and give you a task to develop an SOP in line with what you do. This is a standard way to do it. Go ahead and develop. You have a timeline of 2 weeks to develop your SOPs, and I'm going to review. So if it's not you, if you have HR or a manager can review, but if you don't, you have to review. So rather than do those processes by themselves, what you can do is to teach them, go with them, go over the work with them. This is how we do it here. After explaining, let them go ahead and develop their SOP in line with the guide, with this guide. And after doing that, you can review the SOP, approve, and then store it. So that you don't start thinking, how do I start? Where do I start from? If you have a team, let them do it. If you don't have a team, you have to set yourself and maybe tell yourself every week, at least do one SOP for the job you do, so that when people start coming in, because any work you cannot replace yourself in, you can never outgrow it. You have to keep doing it. You have to keep doing it, because only you know how to do it. You have to keep doing it. So the only way to replace yourself in a system or in a company or in your role is to create a system around it so that you can hand over to somebody else to implement while you take on the most strategic part of your work as a business owner. Let me remind you, as is my custom to remind you every day in this School of Structure. Your business is a divine solution designed to solve the existing or future problems of humanity. And this is me appealing to you. Please, don't let it die. Don't treat it casually. Don't reduce your vision to a hustle. Don't reduce what you're building to survival. Don't let it die. So systems are not about sophistication. They are about simplicity and clarity for the purpose of continuity. Systems are not about sophistication. They are about simplicity and clarity for the purpose of continuity.